السميع العليم من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وصلى الله تعالى على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. Inshallah, picking up with the Prophet ﷺ, the legendary military empire, after completing a total of 28 videos. This should be video number 29, the era of Sayyidina Uthmaan ibn Affan. We're at the section of the turmoil that claimed the life of the honorable Sahabi, Sayyidina Uthmaan ibn Affan. We have completed a total of 69 videos. The Prophet ﷺ's legendary government military, the era of Sayyidina Umar ibn al-Khattab. And we've also completed a total of 50 videos, the era of Sayyidina Abu Bakr as-Siddiq, the Prophet ﷺ's legendary military legacy. And a total of 30 videos of the Prophet ﷺ's legendary military career. Now we're picking up from page number 367. Allah promised His Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam that He would not destroy this ummah through drought or famine, and that He would not make it live under enemy rule forever, no matter how strong and mighty the enemy might be. What He did not promise him, however, was that there would not be discord within the ummah itself. Therefore, discord makes the people vulnerable to their enemies. Disputes and killing among the Muslims make them also weak, and thus enable the enemy to get the upper hand and manage their resources and affairs as they wish. This humiliation will not be lifted until they focus again on becoming strong through being united and ruling by the law of Allah Jalla Jalaluhu. Through turmoil, sects that have strayed from the guidance of Al-Islam may appear and gain power. Through conflict, people's manners change, and most individuals abandon good deeds. Enmity, hatred, and rancor take their place. Instead, people become confused. These problems are preceded by peace, safety, and welfare, to the extent that the only thing a rider from Iraq to Mecca has to fear is getting lost. This can be seen in the era of Uthman, for it was an era of peace, safety, and abundant wealth and resources. Then the turmoil of killing occurred and destroyed it all, and safety was replaced by fear. As a result of conflict, the best individuals and the most intelligent and wise members of the society are killed, leaving behind a group of unstable individuals who do not know the meaning of good and have no concern for the crimes that take place. Imam Az-Zuhri, this is chapter 20. States, Uthman was the commander of the faithful for 12 years, during the first 6 of which no one complained about him at all, and he was more beloved to the Quraysh than Umar ibn al-Khattab. This was because Umar had been very strict, but Uthman was gentle and popular with the people. Then the turmoil began. Muslim historians call the second half of Uthman's Caliphate from 30 years after the Hijriyah to 35 years after the Hijriyah, the period of turmoil, and that turmoil ultimately led to Uthman's martyrdom. During the Khalifa of Abu Bakr and Umar ibn Khattab radiallahu anhuma, Muslims lived in harmony and there was no dispute within the nation. This was true of the first part of Uthman's reign as well. During the last part of Uthman's Khalifa, some incidents divided the Muslims, and finally a group of troublemakers, oppressors, murdered Uthman. As a result, more division occurred. During the Khalifa of Abu Bakr and Uthman, and during the first half of Uthman's reign, the Muslim community had the following characteristics. In general, it was an Islamic community with strong faith in Allah Jalla Jalaluhu and the last day. It seriously implemented the teachings of Al-Islam. Religion to the members of this community was the way of life. It was reflected in their manners, ideas, and concerns. Values, social relations, family life, treatment of neighbors, business, traveling, earning a livelihood, transactions, taking care of the disabled, commanding the right and forbidding the wrong, and supervising the work of rulers and governors. Of course, this does not mean that every individual in the society matched this description. There were hypocrites even during the time of the Messenger of Allah sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wasallam himself. They manifested al-Islam but were enemies in reality. As confirmed by the Quran, there were some whose faith was weak and others who tried to halt the spread of al-Islam. Yet others found Islamic teachings too tough to implement. They tried to hinder the Muslims' sincere practice of al-Islam. There were some who were downright traitors. None of the aforementioned people, however, had any say in the society. They had no political power and were unable to change anything. The community was led by sincere believers who adhered to the teaching of al-Islam and expressed their willingness to sacrifice themselves as well as their wealth in Allah Jalla Jalaluhu's cause. This community manifested the truest meaning of the word Ummah or Muslim nation. A true Muslim nation does not merely comprise a group of people united by a common language, country, or mutual interest, for these were the bonds of the pre-Islamic period. The people of the nation of al-Islam that serves the will of Allah Jalla Jalaluhu are united by the bond of faith. Regardless of their language, gender, skin color, or worldly interest, no nation in history has achieved this unity the way the Muslims have. The early period of the righteously guided Khalifa exemplified the true meaning of Ummah. It was a community of high moral conduct based on principles derived from the commandments of al-Islam. The etiquette concerning gender relations was one of the most outstanding feats of this nation. This society was void of nudity and free mixing, along with every word, deed, and gesture that could deprive one of proper modesty and bashfulness. It was also void of lewdness, except for the little from which no society is spared. The principles, however, were not restricted to these. They extended to politics, economics, and assembling and addressing people. All the rules were based on the Islamic injunctions, and people's relations with each other were based on truthfulness, fidelity, sincerity, cooperation, and mutual love. There was no mockery behind someone's back, and no one would spread rumors about or slander others. Rumors about others or slander others. That was not allowed. It was a sober community that worked to achieve the loftiest aims or the loftiest aims. It did not waste time on useless matters. It should be noted here, though, that being serious does not mean always sporting a frown and a severe expression. Rather, it can be described as the spirit that motivates people to stand up and work for their goals. The ambition of this nation were higher and more far-reaching than mere daily living. There were no signs of people being idle and lazy. There was no question of sitting at home or loafing around the street with nothing to do, looking for ways to kill time. There was no such thing, but today when we go to Muslim countries, that's all they have, unfortunately. It was a society that was ready to work in all fields. Its military spirit was clear in the battlefield as well as in every other field. Everyone was ready to work immediately upon request. There was no need to import soldiers or workers. The society employed its own members who were motivated by mutual faith and energy to work wherever the need arose. It was a worshipping society. Its spirit of worship was manifested in its conduct and went well beyond the obligatory and voluntary acts of worship for the pleasure of Allah Jalla Jalaluhu. Its people worked in the spirit of worship. The ruler led his people in the spirit of worship. The teachers of the Quran and jurisprudence taught in the spirit of worship. God-conscious merchants conducted business in the spirit of worship, and husbands and wives raised their families and looked after their homes in the spirit of worshipping Allah Jalla Jalaluhu. All of this was done in compliance with the following instructions of Allah's Messenger Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Each one of you is a shepherd, and each one of you is responsible for his flock. This is in Bukhari. These were the more significant traits of the era of Abu Bakr and the righteously guided caliphs. The closer the time was to the period of the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, the stronger these traits were. Likewise, the further it was from his time, the weaker these traits became. The people who belonged to the model Muslim society made it an ideal period in the history of Al-Islam. The trait of its followers helped spread Al-Islam at an incredible speed. In less than 50 years, Muslims conquered land from the Atlantic in the west to India in the east. This in itself is a phenomenon that deserves to be recorded and highlighted, along with the way that people of the conquered areas embrace Al-Islam without being forced or pressured. The real cause was that people came to love Islam after seeing its amazing, beautiful applications. The study of this period in history is bound to leave a permanent mark upon a person's heart. Without doubt, Al-Islam is a practical religion that can be fully applied in today's world. What has happened once can indeed happen again, as the human being of today is the same human being who existed back then. Indeed, the Muslims will rise as long as they are determined. This will be followed by victory and power. Allah Jalla Jalaluhu has promised those who have believed among you and done righteous deeds that He will surely grant them succession to authority upon the earth, just as He granted it to those who were before them, and that He will surely establish for them therein Al-Islam, which He has preferred for them, and that He will surely substitute for them after their fear security, for they worship Him and not associate anything with Allah Jalla Jalaluhu. But whoever disbelieves after that, then those are the defiantly disobedient ones. This is Quran, Surah number 24, ayah number 55. Before they can bring back the righteously guided caliphs, Muslims must know why it fell. This will inshallah help them avoid the same mistakes again, and instead do whatever Allah Jalla Jalaluhu has made a means to reach this honor. For this reason, we wish to discuss in detail the most important reasons behind the turmoil that led to the martyrdom of Sayyidina Uthmaan ibn Affan, the effects of ease and prosperity in the community. The Messenger of Allah used to see his companions suffering from hardship and poverty. He would ask them to be patient, and he would inform them that this condition would not last for long and that soon the riches of this world would be available to them. He warned them not to let this wealth hinder them from good deeds and jihad in the path of Allah Jalla Jalaluhu. He also foretold that this might lead them to fight each other for some petty pleasures of this temporal world. This warning was well understood by Umar bin al-Khattab radiallahu anhu, whose policy was to protect the Muslims from the dangers of wealth and worldly vanities. This is why he prevented them at first from expanding the conquest to Persian lands. Umar had to allow this later for specific reasons, but the ban still applied to the senior companions from the Muhajirin and the Ansar who were in Al-Madinah. Then Uthman became the Khalifa, and the conquest expanded east and west. Money came pouring into the state treasury from spoils and loot, and everyone's hands became full of wealth. Needless to say, the blessings and income from the new conquest affected the society, because a life of ease and prosperity tends to occupy people and tempt them with a materialistic lifestyle, and it is often a source of rivalry and mutual hatred. This was especially true with regard to the harsh Bedouins, whose level of faith was rather weak. Also, the members of the extravagant nations had embraced Islam after the conquest, and they had a lengthy history of enjoying worldly glitter and competing with it. Uthman saw this happen and warned the Muslims of the change that will take place. He wrote a letter to the people stating, For this nation will turn towards innovation when three things are found in it: luxury, maturing of children from your female slaves, and Bedouins and foreigners reading the Quran. Having witnessed the effects of this luxury with his own eyes, Al-Hasan al-Basri talks about the condition of the society in the midst of the abundant good and money, and the way people had become proud and forgotten to be grateful to Allah Jalla Jalaluhu. He comments, I saw Uthman in this situation in which they became upset with him. Not a day would pass mostly without them taking their share of goods. They were told, O Muslims, come and take this, what is yours. They would come and take plenty. Then it was announced, come to clarified butter and honey. People were given all the time, and provisions kept pouring in. The enemy could not enter. Mutual relations were great, and good were abundant as well. The sword was never unsheathed against the Muslims, but they unsheathed it against themselves. By Allah Jalla Jalaluhu, it has been like that until this very day. I can see the sword unsheathed until the day of judgment. As for the maturing of their children from their female slaves, the result of this could be seen in the ease and luxury in which these people had begun living. The first misdeed that appeared in Al-Madinah after wealth had become abundant was the flying of pigeons and shooting with the crossbows. In the 8th year of his Khalifa, Uthman appointed a man from Banu Layth to clip the wings of the pigeons and break the crossbows. The flying of pigeons. So I guess they started using pigeons, raising them, and just enjoying, having pigeons fly back and forth. And this distracted the people already, having this sport. Some people also drank a beverage made of dates or raisins and became intoxicated. This was also in Medina. Uthman sent a man to go around with a stick and stop them. When the situation became worse, he complained to his advisors, who agreed that those who drank this beverage should be flogged. Some of them were caught and punished. Whenever Uthman caught someone doing anything evil or unsheathing a sword, he would expel him from Medina. The corrupt fathers of such individuals protested because of this. Thus Uthman stood up and addressed the people in Al-Madinah. I hear that some people insist upon evil and corruption. I should not be the first to open the doors of conflicts or the one to initiate it. I should put on a halter and rein myself. The halter shall lead me, and the reins shall stop me. The end of the rope is for you to hold. Whoever follows me, I should have him do what he already knows. Whoever does not follow me will be replaced by Allah Jalla Jalaluhu, and that is his own loss. On the day of resurrection, every soul will have a driver and a witness. A driver to drive it on Allah Jalla Jalaluhu's command, and a witness to witness all that it has done. Whoever seeks Allah Jalla Jalaluhu's pleasure with anything, let him await his reward. And whoever wants this worldly life has lost her. Also, some members of the Muslim community learned the Quran not to be rewarded by Allah Jalla Jalaluhu, but merely to earn the money that the Khalif had designated as a gesture of encouragement for those who studied the Quran. It must be noted here that this change first appeared in the outskirts of the Muslim state, and from there it started to spread towards the capital of the Muslimin. As a result, Uthman warned people in his sermons against letting the temporary possessions of this world destroy them. In one of his authorities or oratories, he declared, Allah has only given you worldly possessions so that you will use them to seek the afterlife. He did not give them to you in order for you to rely upon them. This world should come to an end, and hereafter should remain. Let not this temporary life make you proud and keep you from the one which will be everlasting. Beware of the change that Allah Jalla Jalaluhu might cause to happen, and stay together and do not become divided into sects. Then he recited Allah and hold, or he recited the words of Allah Jalla Jalaluhu, which states, and hold firmly to the rope of Allah altogether, and do not become divided. Remember the favor of Allah Jalla Jalaluhu upon you when you were enemies, and he brought your hearts together, and you became by his favor brothers. You were on the edge of a pit of the fire, and he saved you from it. Thus does Allah Jalla Jalaluhu make clear to you his ayats, his signs, that you may be guided. This is Quran, Surah number 3, ayah number 103. In this situation, the Muslims also became idle. Now that they had discovered the meaning of comfort and ease, some of them began complaining about their Khalif. Thus, we can see the effects of ease and prosperity in creating conflict, and we can understand Uthman's words to Abdurrahman ibn Rabia while he was in Bab. Repletion has made fighting heavy on many of our people, so slow down and do not expose the Muslimin to danger, for I am afraid that there will be trouble for them. The nature of social change, serious and strong changes took place within the society, even though everything happened slowly and quietly, without anyone being aware of it. Finally, in the second half of Uthman's Khalif, it manifested itself in public in a violent and explosive manner, reached its peak in the rebellion that led to Uthman's martyrdom. When the Islamic State expanded through conquest, the social structure changed and became more challenging, as the state encompassed new areas with diverse population. Muslims interacted with people of different races, languages, and cultures, customs, orders, ideologies, beliefs, art, and architecture. The social structure became somewhat disharmonious, especially in the large and influential regions of Basra, Kufra, Syria, Egypt, Medina, and Mecca. Because of their strategic location and importance, people from these areas comprised a major part of the armies sent for various conquests. Some of them were martyred during the conquest and replaced by a large number of people from the newly conquered lands. These included Persia, Persians, Turks, Byzantines, Copts, Kurds, and Berbers. A majority, however, were Arab, Christian, or Jewish. Most of them were also from the Arab tribes from the north, south, and east. To be more precise, the number of people who had been sufficiently nurtured by the Prophet ﷺ or his companions gradually decreased. As a result, the society changed and was now composed of those belonging to early generations, residents of newly conquered lands, Bedouins, those who had apostatized before, and Jews and Christians. The culture and way of living had changed as well. Deviation crept into the society, and rumors were more readily accepted. The population of the new society was composed of the following people: the early generation of companions and those who had learned a great deal from them. These two groups made up only a small number of citizens because, as discussed above, their numbers had decreased through natural death, martyrdom, or dispersal to different regions. They were now spread around the conquered regions and vast new areas like Basra, Kufra, Syria, and Egypt. Some of them were also in the Arabian Peninsula, whence they would leave and then return. Inshallah, we will stop here on page number 378. Apparently, there is again a good amount left. The turmoil has to be well dissected for the people who are following to understand. I was having a conversation with one who mentioned the battle of Karbala, and I did bring up to them, since they had not studied the turmoil of Sayyidina Uthman bin Affan, they could not possibly understand the turmoil that took the life of Sayyidina Hussein ibn Ali radiallahu anhuma. So I think that it's again really important to understand the mindset of the people. And this was, when we get to Sayyidina Ali ibn Abi Talib, this was his disagreement with Muawiyah mainly, and namely also that if we go after the people and we leave the true cause of how people have reached this level of mentality, then we're just going to have the same thing happen again. So I think it's, the author did a very good job in describing how we should be looking into the turmoil, not to pass judgment, but to understand how it started and its effects, and hopefully to be in a better position to avoid it from happening again, or taking, a turn that really could have been avoided. So, inshallah, we will again pick it up on the next video. That would be video number 30. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك وتبارك اسم ربك وتعالى جدك ولا إله غيرك ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين.